додати не потрібно. Це розмова закінчена. Бачиш, мене всі люди сидять чекають. Ні, ну ти і слава, вона тобі десь. І що таке? Бо це по обіді вибирала, а мені потім розбиратися. So sorry about that. If you don't mind, I will eat while our conversation, because we're arriving at the station soon, and as always, I didn't have time to eat, so... Remind me, which newspaper are you from? TV? Ah. Theatre? Артисти, значит. I also was an artist once. Why did I change my occupation? Well, I fell. I was an aerial acrobatic. And I had to relearn how to walk, how to talk, how to live properly. I had to learn everything from scratch. If you think about it, circus and railroad, they're very similar. Well, what is circus? It's a journey. You go from town to town. What is railroad? It's a travel. You're also constantly changing locations. Who do you perform for at the circus? You know that better than me. For the audience. Who do you take? Transport? People. This is your audience. Well, I think so at least. Talking about risks, I risked my life while I was performing in the circus. Here, when a controller comes on the train, you'll get your rush of adrenaline. You risk your job. I guess I was looking for a place to feel like home, and I found one. Hear this? That's what I'm talking about. On the morning of 24th, I was at home. I was scared, but I'd been feeling this since 2014. I come from Donetsk, and I already had to leave my home once. So I moved to Vinnytsky region, rented an apartment there for a couple of years. Now I own it. That morning we were called in for work. We went to Lviv, so our train got fixed and equipped properly. And then we were sent to Zaporizhia. And at that time, Zaporizhia 2 station was heavily shelled, right on the rail tracks. So we were turned around, and we ended up in... Наташка, куди нас послали ото після Львова? Що? Ну, на Запоріжжя ми поїхали, розвернули, а потім... Харків. Харків. It was even scarier there. You see people with eyes wide open, full of anxiety, running around. We were on our feet 24/7, picking up people, taking them places, running into tunnels, hiding from bombings mostly. It was a lot. 10 to 12 people on a single bench, even more on the aisle. It was physically impossible to go through that train car. I'm telling you this and there is a lump in my throat, because I still don't know how my crew got through it. It was physically and mentally demanding. How do I explain this? Imagine. So there are 15 train cars and about 8,000 crowd of people coming at you, trying to get on. And you know that you can take, well, 2,000 tops. You know that's the limit because the overload of the train car leads to vacillation in auto connection, and it can cause self-disconnection in the turrets. But of course, the most important thing was getting people out of there, evacuating them, as many as possible. We called our train Flying Dutchman. You know why? Because we could go anywhere at any time. At that moment, I was calling the traffic controller, the company, again and again and again and again. And finally, I found out where we were going. We ended up in Kramatorsk on the morning of the 7th. It happened like this. We left from Lviv, went to Poltava South to spend the night, and after we were supposed to go to Kharkiv again. But it was too dangerous at the moment, so they turned us around and sent to Kramatorsk. And after we arrived, they attacked again, and the bridge behind us was blown up. And we realized that's the only link that connected us to the rest of Ukraine. The city wasn't occupied yet, but it was a gray zone. So you realize that at any moment Russian army can enter, and it was heavily shelled all the time. So until that bridge was fixed, we could not go back. That morning I redefined fear for myself. I know people I work with very well. I personally know each and one of them. I'm responsible for them. But then, everyone needed support. But I cannot be physically with everyone at the same time. So, I created a group chat on a Viber app and called it my crew. And I was writing there every day. You're doing great. You're such a strong bunch. Keep together. We can do this. We will survive. Is it yours? So sorry about that. Oh my. I'll deal with this later. Yeah, but of course, in such conditions you get anxiety, hysterical attacks. I had 2 girls like that in my crew. One of them is just 1 meter height. And I personally went to each and one of them, sat down with them.
I want to quit. I'll leave in the train on the next station. But thank you so much.
Of course, you can do it, yes. But first look at me. I know. I'm scared too. Yes. I also have a family and a son. But you know, I'm holding strong for them. And so can you. We'll do this together, I promise. We'll get through this. Yes. Breathe. And that's how you get them out of the anxiety attack. Then I asked them to show me something on their phones when they get distracted. And that's how I got them out, step by step. And I guess in that process, I got broken inside myself, step by step. But you know, I believe that after circus, I can deal with anything. You know, circus athletes, sportsmen, they have this driving force. They are taught not to show their emotions. So, for example, I never cry in front of other people. So, if I feel like crying, only when I get home, I can cry my eyes out. That morning we realized that none of us might get home. Everybody started calling their children, their parents. I also called my son to say goodbye. I said to him, listen, I'm so sorry. Just a moment. You know, we're people. We make mistakes. We can hurt someone by a word or an action, or even just a look. We're not perfect. So that morning in Kramatorsk, it was complete chaos. Shelling, people hysterically running around, shouting, crying. And in all of that, our boys were fixing that bridge. And we had two options. Either we could stay, and in that case none of us would have survived, because next morning the station got heavily shelled and 52 people died. Or we could risk and try to get through that bridge no matter what. Our train operator chose the second option. So he accelerated the speed of the train up to 2 kilometers per hour. And in such conditions, you cannot go any faster or slower, because at any moment you could fall off that bridge. So kilometer by kilometer, we were plowing through. And finally we did it. We got to the ground. We got to the Ukrainian-controlled territory. I don't remember the name of that train operator, but if I would meet him now, I would just hail in admiration and respect. After we passed Slavyansk, then Lozova, I fainted. Just switched off. I don't know how to describe this. I guess you have to live through it to understand. Та що? Ну от, знову здорово, на вас не напасешся, розумієш? Тут всі запаси вам здорово. Обязательно, все отдаш. Оце теж. Я все записала. And I know what is the most bitter aspect in all of that story. At the station, in the depot, there's no bomb shelter for us, for conductors. So, if there's an air raid alert or bombing, there's no place for us to go. I mean, there is an option. There's a hole in the ground so you can just jump in it. But can't they at least cover that hole? Why don't we have a bomb shelter? Aren't we humans? After the victory, I don't know. I guess I'll just fall down on the ground and kiss it. Kiss our land, our soil. I wish that day was today. Ой, так, хлопці, дівчата, заболтали мене. Не треба біжати. We're arriving at the station soon, so I'll have to get to the head of the train. My brother died in Donetsk under shelling. And I sent my son to find my brother's body. And he did. He went to the temporary occupied territory and found my brother's grave. He is buried without a name, just as a number. I cannot explain how I feel now. Lilia, head railroad conductor, a town of Kozada.
My parents are doctors. I always knew I would be one. You know, a doctor, a medic, neurosurgeon. For me it was, I don't know, it might sound, for me this was medicine. For example, would you like to participate in an operation? Would you like to be there during the surgery to see how it goes? I always knew I would love to. I was on my internship in Chernihiv. The 21st of February was the last day of it. We had to go to Kiev to our professor to pass our last internship exam. So I woke up at 5 a.m., I packed my bag, and then my mom, who had a shift, called. She said, Kostya, don't go anywhere. The full-scale war has started. Russia attacked. Mom, what war? Come on, what kind of news was she reading? So I go out to the bus stop and then I see our airfield on fire. I came back home, I put my bag down and went to work, where I had my practice. It's not like I couldn't leave. Yes, I could, but I just knew that there's not many doctors in there, you know. We don't have many doctors. We don't have, in Chernihiv, there are not many neurosurgeries, except regional clinics, and war means head injuries. It means spinal cord injuries. This is all work for neurosurgeons. They will all be brought to us. So I had to help my doctors. I came there, and there was one doctor, one surgeon. It was his shift, and he said, Kostya, get out. Kostya, I don't need you. Go home. Kostya, go home. Get out. Go home. I just said, I have my duty. And after that, there were no other questions. So this is how my working hours have started. You sit and wait, you know, because they can bring anyone, anytime, anything can happen. There were days when we operated in each and every room. This is how it goes. You wake up in the morning, if you're lucky to have some sleep, and then you go around the patients to check the prescriptions, and of course you keep running for the emergencies. Once a week and a half, you can go home to take some fresh clothes. See your family, you know. And you have to know that we didn't have in Chernihiv electricity or cell phone connection for 30 days. So I went to the surgery to charge my power bank with a generator there so I can give it to my mom. If it was a good day, my mom could send me a text message, but there was a time that when I just didn't hear from her in a week. And then somebody says that district where my mom is shelled by mortars. But I can't go home. was a man. A soldier. He didn't... Well, it was he got a fragment in his spine. He didn't feel his body. Nothing below the nipples. Only hands. And we operated on him, but his spinal cord was just ruined. His competent bodies came and told me that his wife had cancer, his child was handicapped, and he himself, been in ATO for years. He was a real soldier, you know, was shooting and scouting missions. And I had to come to intensive care where he was, to make him stop crying. And I'm a doctor, you know, I know that nobody can stand up after an injury like that. How should I say that to him? There was a woman. After the attack, they brought her as an unknown. And I checked her head. Well, her brains got out and she died. And the nurse who was doing her CT scans said, "I know her. My daughter was attending her classes. She's a dance teacher. She has a studio." I had only one question then. Why? Why the children's dance teacher died? And I couldn't do anything. There was a man and his son at the first day of war. They brought them, they tried to evacuate with their car, and their car was shot. The man was mostly fine, but his son, well, he got injuries incompatible with life. We operated on him, but he died. And the father said, "My wife's dead. Now my son, how can I live?" The guy was just a tractor driver in his village, you know, he was planting crops. His father lived for him. At the moments like this, I'm just standing there, looking for words. There was a woman with cancer. She walked out of the window. She tied a note around herself saying,
"The pain is unbearable. There's no medicine in the entire city. I found my way out."
You have to have guts to do that. Moments are like this are, really tough. Really tough. They don't teach that in medical university. Scary. Yeah, it was scary when they started attacking hospitals, one after the other. At some point, we just had 2 hospitals left, and ours became a military hospital. So one day we just go out, and then we see something flying above. Our soldiers said that this was a reconnaissance drone. And it was something like 7 p.m. It meant like at 10, at 2, and at 4 a.m. they will bomb us. Just stop, please. So when when the plane is bombing somewhere close, the doctors, men, are mostly fine. But we also have nurses who are women. They get really scared. And after 10th, 20th day of war, we just stopped going to the bomb shelter. We went to the hallway. And then the head of neurosurgery department comes and he offers to check whose legs are longer. Oh yeah. Everybody laughing, making jokes. This is family. Every man who went to the front line, they were sure that we would help. Yes, I could leave. Yeah, I guess I could, but how could I live after that? What's the point of fighting if I simply can't perform my duty? There is a saying that the best surgeons come from war where there are the worst injuries. This is true. The best surgeons come from war where you have to make the toughest decisions. I think I passed my exam. Yes, I did. I made those decisions. Some were right, some weren't. But I've learned a lot, professionally and personally. I learned to value, simple things. When it's +7 outside and +12 inside, what do you want? All you want is just hot cup of tea and just one more blanket to sleep under. 3, not 2. Simple things. I just don't have this. I need to go to work, I need to stand there near a surgery table for all night shift. I don't have that. Maybe, yes, it will come later, but just now I have this excruciating desire to go to work and learn every day. Excruciating desire of life. After the victory, I will just stay in my bed all day and sleep. Nothing else. Konstantin, intern neurosurgeon, Chernihiv City.
On the 24th of February at 5 in the morning, I thought I would go to school. Even when I heard the explosions, I still thought I would go. I was in such a good mood. I wasn't even worried. I was standing by an open window, eating popcorn. I even saw it in my Insta stories. I just didn't care. Then they turned the water and the lights off, but we had a pump, a well, a generator, so we didn't worry. We saw missile attacks all over the city. There were victims, but we still were not leaving. For some reason, we were not leaving. I don't know. We thought that there would be nothing so completely terrible, just some... I never even questioned why aren't we going. Then looting began in my grandpa's store. Then he started just going out and giving people food. He simply took everything out so the doors and the counters would not be broken. Well, everyone knew my grandpa, so they tried to treat him with respect. Well, at first. When tanks started passing by our house, we had already decided not to go upstairs, and several shells fell on us. We had gas tanks behind the house, so Grandpa went to check whether they exploded or not. And just at that moment, a projectile flew. Just half a meter away from him. He was at the door, but didn't have time to get in. It was on direct course headed for me at that moment. Like, you could draw a straight line from where this projectile flew. I would have died if I got any further. All the walls were badly damaged. I immediately shouted, I'm fine, and then Grandpa started calling Grandma, Natasha, just a bunch of times, Natasha, 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 Natasha. I don't know how he managed to shout that. He did great. Then Grandma shouted, Sasha, Sasha, Sasha. She went out to look and said, God, he's under the rubble, but he wasn't. I don't know when she said that. She was stressed, I guess. She opened the door to where Grandpa was, and we dragged him into the house. Grandma says, help pulling, and in the end, I pulled him in myself. I don't know how I managed to. Well, no adrenaline, that's how. And now my grandpa is lying there, wounded, and my grandma does nothing. She didn't know what to do. I quickly say, give me a knife. I cut his sweater to see where his injuries are. Why is that? If something terrible happens, they always come to me and ask.
What should we do? Yeah, what should we do? You always know what to do. Yeah, what should we do? Tell us, what should we do? What should we do?
Grandma, bring me an extension cord, the one for a socket, or something like a harness, only thick, not thin, because you cannot make bandages from a thin one. You need something thick. Ideally, it would be some kind of a tourniquet, maybe a belt. But we didn't have one at hand, so We look at his body and understand that his arm is mostly damaged and the artery is passed there. So I said, Grandma, that's it. We tie it up near the shoulder. So we tied up near the shoulder and then started looking at his body and realized that there is a big hole in his head. Well, there's no way to fix that, actually. We bandaged his arm. My grandma kept shouting something at him. It was so annoying. In fact, it was the worst feeling in my entire life. There were other terrible things. I had some hopeless situations. Suicide attempt, car crashes. But this one was the worst. After he was already bandaged, we were sitting, my grandma brought me a chair, then she brought cognac, then she offered me a cigarette. I said, no, I don't want to drink, I didn't want to drink or smoke, I have never even tried before. My heart skipped a bit. I had a feeling that I was going to tear my heart out now. I don't know why. I tried to keep calm. I remembered an advice. In order not to panic, you need to look around and name the objects or their colors in your head or out loud. We had a storage with the bags of piles there, so I looked around and the bag with cabbage is green. The refrigerator is white. The tiles are black. The window frame is orange. The green. White. Black. Orange.
Green.
White.
Black.
Orange.
I'm sitting, trying to calm myself down, because I had a feeling that I was going to pass out, although I've never fainted in my entire life. My grandma gave me water. I drank and couldn't get enough. I'm very thirsty when I'm nervous. I started calling. The connection was very bad. I got the phone out of my grandpa's pocket and I was trying to find an ambulance. And in the emergency room they said, no, we're no longer working.
If you want to bring someone, bring them yourself, only yourself.
I understand that there is a tank in front of our house. I can take my grandpa out, nor can my grandma. So I called my uncle and told him that grandpa is injured. He left for us. I was sitting next to my grandpa. And I understood that, well, he will not survive at all. And I had those thoughts. It would be better if he died sooner now. Because he's suffering a lot. I can see it. I know his heart is bad. I know if he doesn't die from fatal injuries or blood loss, he will die from a heart attack. He has a contagion. His body just can't take it. Actually, he died quite quickly then. My uncle came to us and he has this Mazda car and it has 3 6s on the number plates. It probably looks scary for the religious people. He came in, looked at us, saw Grandpa's body, burst into tears. We didn't have time to think, so we got into the car and quickly drove off. He's been driving fast his entire life. It turned out that he drank half a bottle of cognac by then, but he drove perfectly, just superb. As we went along the way, we saw tanks burning. And then, by the way, it was sunny. It was such a shock, because it had been snowing and it had been gloomy all the time. And then it was sunny. We arrived at my uncle's. I see my younger cousin. And I think, how do I explain Grandpa's death to him? And I came up with a brilliant plan. I told him that we evacuated because it was dangerous there and Grandpa stayed to take care of the store. And these adults, my God, these adults, they began to say, he's dead, he's dead. I said, shut up! Children are here. My cousin. He loved his grandpa so much. I'm standing in front of him with this scarf of mine and it's covered in blood. I always wear my scarf. I'm like Napoleon. I'm very afraid to catch a cold. I always panic about that. Do you know who Napoleon is? The adults are sitting on the floor in the kitchen. My grandma, covered in blood, asks, Yeva, what should we do? What about the body? How do we take it with us? Who should I call? I'm standing there. I don't know what to say. There were always these questions. What should we do? Where do we get gasoline? What about the generator? How do we hide it so it's not stolen? For some reason, all of these questions were addressed to me. Say army. I don't know. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to be raped or something. Because army sounds terrifying. But they turned out to be our soldiers and they said we have 5 minutes to get ready. So we quickly packed, took everything necessary. I took the documents from the basement because everybody forgot. I put my dog in my school bag. I always had my school bag handy. I had the most necessary things in there, and for some reason I also had those aroma sticks, you know, the scented ones. I don't know, I just put them there. Never mind. They put us in the car, and they put the mother-in-law in the trunk, and she's claustrophobic, so she started screaming. They had to move her into the front seat. They drove us, and I thought that we were going to be evacuated from Volnovakha. But they brought us into the hospital, put us in the basement with a bunch of other people. I think, okay, we will stay here for a couple of hours until everyone is evacuated. But no, we stayed there for several weeks. We even celebrated the International Women's Day, the 8th of March there. Well, celebrated. Everyone just came up to each other and said, Happy 8th of March. There were many dogs there. I gave them water because all the people were very nervous and scared, and they just forgot about that. In this hospital, for some reason, I felt like doing exercises, push-ups, pull-ups on pipes. I had a burst of energy. I had a post-traumatic stress disorder even before work because my stepdad beat me. So people with post-traumatic stress disorder are constantly stressed. And when they get into a very stressful environment, they feel fine. I don't know. Maybe that's why I wasn't so lost. I saved the charger on my headphones. Was listening to Queen. I don't wanna die. I sometimes wish I'd never been born at all. There were other teenagers there. I've noticed they do not have any access to music, so I offered them mine. There was this guy who brought a computer unit and a monitor with him. So interesting. Somebody didn't have anything at all. Somebody didn't take any documents, and somebody brought a computer. Somebody had certificates from graduating from the first grade. A snowman made of plasticine. Then I finally got out of Volnovakha, and Grandma stayed to bury Grandpa. She was sitting in that hospital all by herself. Everyone has already left. And she was sitting and waiting to bury Grandpa. She told me when they got him out of the house, they just put his body on a door. She was talking a long time with him. He was buried near his relatives. Grandma was so lucky to find people who could help her with the burial services after the city was already occupied. They spent their entire lives together. By the way, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. But I try to pray. All my life I think, damn, it would be cool to believe in something. But I can't. Prayers did not help. And then I understood. It's cool that there is no fate. It's cool that all of this is just a coincidence. Because how do I describe it? Probably it's a cool thing that I don't depend on something out there. But like, who do I thank when I go to sleep in a warm bed and alive? Thank you, God, I'm fine. Thank you, fate. I finally realized, thank you, coincidence. It all depends on the coincidence of circumstances. When a rocket arrives, everything depends on it. No matter how much you pray, it can still come at you. I'll accept it if I die. I'll accept it if I don't die. It will be as it will be. I don't know which level of consciousness I reached back then. After the victory, I will go to a psychiatrist. Actually, I want to fly to Mars. I would be more comfortable there. Yeva, a schoolgirl, temporarily occupied Volnovakha.
Видно зібрання літаків на злітній смузі. Це вони скидатимуть бомби у цьому лісі, на тому лузі. Це бачить весь світ, та ніхто нікому не дає по заслузі. Земля нарешті значить щось більше за слова гектар, пай чи кадастр. Хочеться вкрити тебе всю подорожником, наклеїти захисний, знезаражуючий пластир. Наснилось мені, що серце моє не болить, болю просто немає. Наснилось мені, що лютий тривав лиш мить. Тепер вічний серпень, ми їдемо в Ялті трамваєм. Якщо до землі прихилитись вухом, згорнутись калачиком, буде чутно, як вона плаче. Можливо, для неї, лише для неї, людське життя дійсно щось значить. Я сиджу в безпеці зі своїми ідеями, ходжу на підтримуючі акції. Поки область з найбільшим штучно насадженим лісом в Європі. Поки область з найбільшою пустелею в Європі. Поки область з найбільшим островом в Європі знаходиться в російській окупації. Наснилось мені, що серце моє не болить, болю просто немає. Наснилось мені, що лютий тривав лиш мить. Тепер вічний серпень в лазурному дельфіні взирає. Наснилось мені, що серце моє не болить, болю просто немає. Наснилось мені, що лютий тривав лиш мить. Тепер вічний серпень в лазурному дельфіні взирає. Наснилось мені, що серце моє не болить, його просто немає.
I remember, after the 2014 Maidan Revolution, there were many active people, including myself, even at 51. And there was a sense of powerlessness. Nobody knew what to do next. Then the Battle of Ilovaisk happened, Do you know about Ilovaisk? Many of our guys were killed. Some managed to get out. I read a Facebook post then that the wounded were being brought to the hospital, and that if we could buy something, bring something, to please bring it. Then there was nothing in the hospitals. No bandages, no iodine, no medicines. So I went to the hospital, and I met other good people who just came and said, "We will work here." That was the first day of our volunteer headquarters. Well, at first it was, I don't know, I didn't come to volunteer. I came specifically to help in a specific situation. I didn't even see any wounded people the first week. I was in the warehouse, sorting. And then I got to the hospital room, and I saw the first wounded that came after Ilovaisk. They were seriously wounded, with amputations. I felt wild. How could I come up to this person, and what would I tell them? Should I say something or not? Talking to a new person back then was such stress. I couldn't even go out to the street and talk to someone. But here, there's a real person with real problems who probably doesn't want to speak to me at all. Although, just to be clear, this must be done, because a scared person in pain needs someone by his side. And it can't be a doctor. Doctors have their own jobs. Our boys needed what our loved ones do for us when we're sick. If people are in different cities, there's no one there to visit them. There needs to be someone there by their side, to hold their hand, to say something silly, but necessary. You must come and say, "Where are you from?" Does your family know that you're still alive? Let's call them. Do you have a phone? Tell me, who do you have still left at home? People are like horses. The words don't matter. It has something to do with the intonation. It's good when a person understands that you're being genuine with him, that you're not there because you had to be, but because you had a business with him, a real business. Back then, I didn't know that. Now everything is different. Back then, our boys were confused, really scared. It was the first experience of war in Ukraine. Now our fighters have become confident. This is a completely different story. A group of soldiers will arrive and they'll say, "There's still no weapons. We've run out of this, we've run out of that, we're screwed. And then they say, "But actually, we're good. We're doing well here, we're doing fine there." And you calm down, and you understand that, I'm under the impression that we have a good military. Honestly. They fight well. They're very good at that. And when you deal with professionals, it's inspiring. The first wounded people began to arrive after February 28th. The buses arrived. Okay, take them. Yes, that's it. We take them. We've been here since 2014. Everyone knows us. Here's how it happened. We all came to the hospital from different points in the city, our volunteer center. We all came and gathered, took our places. It's as if we never left. This is what you call experience. That first day, we staffed everyone in the departments. There was such a line of people bringing in donations. I'd never seen such a thing. About 3,000 people came in during the day, bringing food, bandages, medicines, clothes, because this is important, you know. When a person comes to the hospital, he needs something to change into. Underwear. This too is a problem. Socks, sports pants, slippers. People came, left, bringing something, asking, what do you need? Well, this, if possible, if you can. Then the person left, returned again, brought it, left it, and it was such a rush. 2 lines of people, one coming from the center and one heading to the center. Then when the main hostilities shifted to the east, everything became difficult. It became a lot. Very big flow. Huge. You don't remember anyone's name anymore. All you can do is just smile at them, say something, try and solve their problems somehow. They don't stay here very long with the flow that we have. Stay for a few days and then they move on. At some stage I stopped recognizing people. All people, even on the streets. I stopped recognizing faces. Many military personnel had just become some guys. This one, the young boy who was sitting over there, this is how we communicated with each other. They're very interesting stories, it's true. And you know what they say? You remember your first 1,000, and then you don't. This is such a stupid expression. All of them become one person, and he's your brother. He's an infinite person who comes to you every day. You communicate with, help, feed, clothe. And then he leaves, and you bring him a piece of bread and say, boys, good luck. Take some water with you on the train. That's it. That's it. Goodbye. And the next batch is already on its way. But you know, I think it's important not to get tired of really loving them. You can't love all people, but when it's one person, you can. Of course, they're all very unique, different in each of their ways. They've been brought up differently, and they're different ages. I mean, they're 18-year-old boys whom I would simply just take and adopt. And they're such elderly gentlemen that you think, my God, what are you doing in the army, Grandpa? They all come for different reasons, but all with a worthy cause. At least the ones that I've seen, the ones I've spoken to. Very rarely is there a person who is not interesting, or unpleasant, or quite frankly not your person. There are very few of those at all. One day, I was at the bus stop, and it was very hot. And I saw 3 men standing over there. I came up to them and I said, excuse me, are you concussed? He looks at me like this. Yes. I say, what are you doing with an uncovered head? Put something on, now. Do you even have a brain? What are you doing walking around in the sun with an uncovered head if you're concussed? They laugh. He says, is it that obvious that I'm concussed? Ha! That's not important. Many in the military are concussed. I know it. Comes with the job, you know. Any man in camouflage is my area of responsibility. Now I can approach anyone on the streets and tell them what I think is necessary for their health. I teach, and I nearly ran after my male students with a stick, first from the military, then from the local defense. And since I know many in the military, I said, guys, God forbid someone takes them, and you will simply be on my enemies list. I I've seen that there's no place for children in war. Ever. Although, sometimes the soldiers remind me of children. They're very vulnerable in the civilian world. I think that a person who kills has a lot of doubts about it. They take it very painfully when they're not treated kindly. They're afraid. And it's such a simple thing. When we say, you're doing well, you're cool, we're proud of you, you're heroes. It must be done. Once, I was in the Red Square in Moscow, near the grave of an unnamed Soviet soldier in the memory of the Second World War. There were a group of Germans there. The young boy asked his father, "Who did they fight with?" And the father answered, "With us." So many years had passed, and he felt that that war was still with him, that he was somehow involved. And with the Russians, no one's involved. No matter who you ask, it's got nothing to do with them. Although, I have the impression that we too have our serious problems. This is our punishment for our flirting with Russia, with the Soviet past, for our tolerance for things one cannot be tolerant to. I think one cannot compromise in art. One cannot compromise in art. Otherwise, it results in very serious problems. And now, with all this controversy about Russian culture, do we really need Russian culture? Now, you shouldn't view this question directed at Chekhov or Dostoevsky personally, but we should simply treat it as a matter of fact that Russian culture is a mother of the war. And, I've had such a serious life evaluation over the years. Because, for example, I left the theater and I went to teach. I'd realized that everything that I had done up to that point was not enough. I think that this war is the result of very bad work from the art world, from artists. I think so. I didn't do my job well. So that is why I want to teach, because it's more important at this moment in time to educate real artists, to do their work well, so that there would be no war. After the victory, I will finally cry. teacher. Dnipro city.